Greetings, Culture Warriors. It is I, Jeff Vieira, author of Culture is Everything, and your host for this latest Dispatch from the Front. Another story for you today. I'm afraid this one will not be very edifying either. If you've been following the last few podcasts. Naval Academy midshipman found guilty of sexually assaulting female classmates. It's from the Capital Gazette. A Naval Academy midshipman accused of breaking into female classmates' bedrooms, assaulting them while they were asleep, and then convincing them to lying about it, was found guilty on almost all counts Wednesday. Midshipman Third Class Nixon Kago was found guilty Wednesday of 2 counts of sexual assault, attempted sexual assault, burglary, and obstruction of justice stemming from 3 attacks in 2018 and 19, the Capital Gazette reported. He took advantage of vulnerabilities when he took control over them while they were asleep, Lieutenant Commander Paul LaPlante said during closing arguments. Kago, 24, accosted the first female midshipman who was drunk and asleep in her bed in February 2018, then another in October 2018. In May 2019, he tried with a third. Prosecutors said Kago manipulated the women into covering for him. Lieutenant Dan Phillips, one of Kago's attorneys, argued that rumors had swirled around the campus and damaged his reputation long before the trial. All right, as many of you know, I'm a Service Academy graduate myself, graduated from the Air Force Academy. So while this story concerns the Naval Academy, there's a lot of similarity to my alma mater, as well as to West Point. Unfortunately, not least of which is that the Air Force Academy has had its own ongoing troubles with sexual assault of female cadets. You have to know a little bit of history on the academies to put this in the full context. Number one is that female cadets are a relatively new phenomenon in the histories of these academies. The Air Force Academy was founded the latest, 1954, and we didn't have female cadets until 1980. I think that was about the same time for all of the academies. So it was, for a substantial part of the history of these academies, they were male-only institutions. The aim was to produce officers for the armed services, and those were, the primary focus was combat officers. In the case of the Air Force Academy, it was to produce pilots. In the case of the Naval Academy, you want ship commanders as well as pilots. It's also the commissioning source for Marine officers. And West Point, of course, for Army, with a particular focus on infantry officers. So you have what were very much male-oriented military cultures in place at these academies at the time the first female cadets showed up. And those masculine traditions have largely continued. During my time as a cadet, for example, there was a female cadet in my boxing class. Boxing was a requirement for male cadets. She elected to participate. She didn't have to. There was an alternate class that was given for female cadets. But there was great difficulty in finding someone who would fight her, because there was no upside for a male cadet to box a female cadet. The reason being was, if you win the boxing match, well, you're beaten on a female cadet and you're going to take abuse for that. And if you lose the boxing match to the female cadet, well, you're going to take abuse for that. So you would run into those situations from time to time. During the time I was there, There was a Colorado senator who was uh, a very well-known feminist who would do things like want to come to the cadet area and meet only with the female cadets. Now, my class, the female cadets in my class, refused to meet with her unless it was open to all cadets. And that displayed a wisdom that I think has been lacking at various times during the history of the academy. Certainly, it showed that we were bonded as a class beyond gender boundaries. Now, that's not to say that we didn't have problems. And some of those problems came about as a result of alcohol abuse. The cadets, for most of their cadet career, are under the legal drinking age in the United States. Typically, you only reach that drinking age during your junior or senior year as a cadet. If you had attended a prep school, meaning you delayed for 1 year before entering the academy, of course, that would be your sophomore or junior year. But for most of us, it was our junior or senior year. This is a third class cadet, meaning that he was the equivalent of a college sophomore. So he was in his second year at the academy, unless he went to prep school, perhaps, in which case he might have attained drinking age before doing what he did. But you had a constant problem in an environment where, even today, the percentage of the cadet wing or the cadet corps at the service academies, it's overwhelmingly male. In my day, we had under 10% were female. That's gone up some, but it nowhere approaches parity. And so as a result, you have young people in a high-stress environment, confined to the cadet areas for long periods of time. And young people being young people, they're going to have relationships. And with the ratio so out of whack, that can create problems. Add alcohol into the mix, more problems. Add a disparity in rank into the mix, more problems. And within the cadet wing, within the Corps of Cadets, etc., what you have, and certainly for midshipmen as well, the Naval Academy, what you have is a military structure to the for the cadets, where not all cadets are created equal. Freshman cadets are underclassmen, and they are generally treated as kind of the lowest on the totem pole within the ranks. And so we would have issues. For example, there was rules against fraternization where an upperclassman could not be involved in a relationship with a lower classman. You could get punished for it. The Air Force Academy, I don't know about the other academies, but it wouldn't surprise me if this was true as well. The Air Force Academy also had strict rules against sexual activity in the dormitories. You could actually get expelled if you were found to have engaged in that. These academies also have honor codes that are strictly enforced. At the Air Force Academy, it was articulated as, we will not lie, steal, nor cheat, nor tolerate among us anyone who does. And so it's not, you can get in trouble not only for you lying, stealing, or cheating, but if you know of somebody who did and you didn't turn them in, you could get the exact same punishment. They could expel you from the institution. I know people who were expelled for toleration of an honor violation. So this happened. So knowing that background, and knowing also that the dormitories are co-ed, So you would walk down within the Air Force Academy. They're called squadron areas. When you walk into a squadron area, you'll see some rooms will have will be male cadet rooms. You will have others that are female cadet rooms. Now, they do not put males and females together in the same room, but you could be right next door. So you have to be aware of that. There's not a separate wing or dormitory or squadron for female cadets. They're not segregated away. We're all in the same areas. And so that leads to violations of the rules and the policies in a situation such as this. The other thing you have to know is, as a general rule, because the honor code exists, doors were usually unlocked. Now, since female cadets started attending the academies, since some of these problems started to happen, it became the norm for females to have more latitude in locking their doors. It was strongly discouraged in my day for males to lock their door, even though we had a lock on the door. And for a large part of the day, the door is open. So there's a couple of reasons for that. One is making sure that your dorm room is in inspection order to some extent. And so your door would remain open. These are kind of unusual features of the service academies. Okay. Now, it is not that hard to get alcohol if you want it. You could go downtown and there's always cadets around who are of drinking age. So if you go out with cadets who are of drinking age, you can partake if they partake. You have sponsors in town, families that kind of give you a home base when you get off base. And sometimes, because you're in the military, they provide you with alcohol. Sometimes cadets, just like any college students anywhere else, sometimes cadets find innovative ways to get it themselves. There are also, in at least some of the academies, places that serve alcohol on base that cadets have access to. So there are certainly a myriad ways to get alcohol if you are so inclined. And it's a continuing problem at the academies that underage cadets do get a hold of alcohol, do drink, do get drunk. And so it's not unusual for the situation that at least one of these victims found herself in to be intoxicated and in your dorm room. And unfortunately, it's not very unusual to have situations where another intoxicated cadet will come to your room when you're both drunk and try something. Now, it is unusual that this particular person actually assaulted them while they were asleep. Thankfully, that doesn't happen very often, not least of which is because usually these rooms having 2 or 3 cadets in them, your roommate could be counted upon to look out for you. Perhaps their roommate was off on a pass or somewhere else, and so that provided the opportunity for this person to commit the crime that he did. But I also want you to understand that there's a reason why, when they say that he manipulated her into lying, that is easier to do in a service academy than it is in a civilian school. And the reason for that is that if she was drunk, she probably expected that she could get in trouble herself. The other thing to consider is that when you are a female at a male-dominated academy and you want to fit in, there can also be social pressure that you don't want to be suspected of making a false claim. It could also be, it's hard in this case, guy. I don't think this really applies, but there could be situations where the female cadet felt like she had sent the wrong signal or she had partially consented. There could be complications that stem from that. And so concern and worry over about what making a complaint means for you is a very common feature of this process. Even no matter what progress we make in providing these young women a safe haven to make a complaint, there's always the concern that it will negatively impact their cadet experience and their eventual commissioning because they did make a complaint. That fear is just very common among female cadets everywhere. Unfortunately, I think that's still a common feature of the service academies today, that fear not to report, not to turn somebody in, even when they've done something as grievous as a sexual assault. But in the end, you have to kind of decide what it is you value. Much like you would with any honor code case. Do you value yourself, your own dignity, the need to take a predator out before they can do more damage? Do you value the truth, no matter where it may lead? Or do you value that tentative peace and comfort that comes from keeping your mouth shut and being one of the group? I don't think that lasts very long. God knows once someone gets away with something, they tend to come back. But that's the situation that these women and so many others have found themselves in. And it's a really terrible situation. There's also the fact that there have been false accusations of sexual assault and abuse. Usually when the woman found herself in a situation, usually alcohol related, where she was likely to get into trouble and took the option of making an accusation as kind of a shield against that trouble. Because rightly, when someone is a victim of such a thing, the wing and the officers at the academy are not inclined to punish them, even if they did something that violated the rules before this happening. Now, the fact of the matter is that the false accusations are not common either. So you have to, everyone's fear is always that they would be falsely accused of doing something and not be able to defend themselves, or that a consensual situation was made out to be non-consensual after the fact. So there's two sets of advice that we were given, male cadets and female cadets, that helps prevent those things and is well considered. And that is, don't put yourself in a situation where your judgment is impaired, and take precautions. One of the precautions I used to take as an officer is, if I ever had to meet one-on-one with a female, the door would be open. That way there was no expectation of privacy, and it limited exposure. If I had to be in a situation where the door had to be closed, then I had another female in the room. And the reason for that was just to make sure that there was a witness And if you do those kind of things to protect yourself, you can at least lessen the probability that you'll get yourself into some sort of bad situation. Now, in her case, she was sleeping. I'm not sure that this particular predator wouldn't have tried something even if she weren't intoxicated. It's true that he wouldn't have had something to blackmail her into going along with keeping her mouth shut afterward. But perhaps he could have found something else. But you have to do what you can in order to kind of avoid those situations. That's not to say that it was incumbent on her or anyone else who's been victimized in those situations. They're not responsible for, providing a foolproof defense to being victimized. The fact of the matter is that the article alludes to this person, this perpetrator, having had a poor reputation for some time. We had situations where we would be at a class function or something and people would get a little bit out of hand in terms of the drinking, and where your friends would keep you from doing stupid things. He may not have had friends, but even so, you would think that somebody would have caught wind of it and either kept a closer eye on him, especially around females, to help prevent this. One of the values that is shared at the various academies is that you look out for each other. You protect each other. Because God knows from the day you enter those doors until the day you throw your cap in the air, the system is designed to get rid of you. And you need each other to avoid getting into situations where that happens. By the time I graduated, a third of the people that had entered my class at the academy had been expelled or left willingly for some reason or other. 1/3. So without that kind of camaraderie, teamwork, concern for each other, that unity, it was simply impossible to make it through to the end. Robert E. Lee was famous for having graduated from West Point without a single demerit. No black marks on his record whatsoever. I am unaware of anyone in all those years since who's managed that same feat. Maybe there's someone out there, but if so, I'm not aware of it. So it's important to kind of pull together, look out for each other, keep each other safe, keep each other out of trouble. And that's part of the lessons that you learn by attending those institutions. The military is a breed apart. It's a unique culture. It's an elite culture. And the service academies are an elite culture within the elite culture of the military. So it's even more important to pick up those values. Obviously, the perpetrator in this case was lacking in terms of those time-honored values, in terms of that integrity, in terms of character. And it's a shame that wasn't discovered and weeded out of the ranks of the midshipmen before he was able to attack these women. So on the one hand, good riddance. I'm glad that the justice system prevailed there. I'm glad that these female cadets had some measure of justice from it. I'm still concerned that we continue to see cases like these year after year at all of the service academies. There's got to be something else we can do to prevent this. Thank you and have a great day.